Happy New Year all. It's now 2017 and this is my first repair video after doing the updates to my workbench. First thing you will notice though is that the video looks a little different. I now have an overhead shot provided by a Sony 3C CD camera, which is mounted above the workbench so you can get a nice shot of what I'll be working on. And for today's project, we will be working on this. And it is a Sony CDP-491, a single disc CD player from 1991. Specifically, it's from October 1991. Now, some people would say, why are you working on this? Well, this one has a lot of history with me personally. This was our first CD player that we bought back in 1991, and I remember going with my mom to Crazy Eddie Wilson's Appliances in Boardman, Ohio, and purchasing this CD player. We got it and 4 CDs for my dad for Christmas, and it was quite a big deal. And we got it, and CD players were still, they weren't new. They'd been out for almost a decade at that time, but they were still fairly expensive, and not a lot of people had them. So we got this and hooked it up to our not so great JCPenney stereo. It was one of those kind of all-in-one things with a turntable, tuner, and tape deck, and 2 tiny, like 4-inch speakers with 3 watts of power. One of those things. And the reason I'm working on this today is, well, I decided to dig it out because I've become old and sentimental, and I wanted to see it again, and I went to power it up, and it doesn't work right. It has some very strange issues. When it is first powered on, which I have it hooked onto my power strip here, I will power it on, and you'll see that it actually does power up and play. And I can forward through tracks, and you get that lovely Sony very fast scan through a disc. The calendar works. Everything here seems to work, but if I hit stop, it may start again. It may not. But if I open the tray, see, it doesn't close the tray. And now that I've closed it again, the CD is not spinning, and it is not picking up the disc at all. So the first thing I'm going to do is pop it open, clean it up because it is rather dirty, and then the biggest tenet of electronics repair is, the first commandment of electronics repair is, thou shalt check voltages. And I will check voltages. I've also been told that sometimes there are switches that are underneath the CD drawer, and if they are dirty, they will cause weird things to happen that the CPU will not like. It will freak out, which is kind of what it's doing right now. So I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to open the CD player up and go from there. All right, we now have the player open. If you've never seen inside of a 90s Sony CD player. Well, they're fairly simple, and there's not a lot in here. It's not like the 80s ones, which had lots of parts and lots of components because they hadn't done a lot of custom ICs yet to do things. And and between 1982 and 1991, quite a bit of changes happened in IC design, allowing them to put more things, more stuff into the chips. But here's the basics. Here's the transport. Power comes in here. Get a power transformer. Got your power supply, voltage regulators over here. And then control driver chips and ICs to control the motors and other things. This would be, that's probably the main driver IC under there. So this is a double-sided construction, and with some surface mount, not a lot, but some. Over here is your DAC, your digital analog converters, and then over here is your two audio op amps that then drive your two channels left and right, and then also come back up here to the headphone jack, which then has its own separate level control, which is a nice feature. Not all CD players have that, so it was a very nice thing on some of the middle to higher end Sony CD players. And then if I tilt it up here, you can see the big fat ribbon cable going to from the driver board to the control panel. And so the first thing I'm going to do here is actually clean things, because it's a little dirty. So I'm going to clean things out here and then start checking a few things, voltages and such, and see also reseat connectors and clean connectors, because that can cause issues as well in this 90s Sony stuff. And so now I've got my multimeter hooked up, as you can see right here. Got it in the top of the frame there. Should be able to see that. There, actually see it a bit better there. And with that, Sony was nice enough to give us test points for voltages. So the first thing I'm going to do is check voltages around the CD player, starting with the plus 10 volts. Okay, which after stabilizing, it's 10.25. It's not too bad. It's a little high, but not too bad. And now we're going to check the 5 volt rail. The plus 5 volt, that is. And that's reasonable. The minus 10 volts is actually a bit high, so I might want to look there. Okay. And minus 5 volts. Get on. And 10 volts. Again. And get as it goes through the circuit. There's a couple more test points. 5 volts. That is not right. That is supposed to be plus 5 volts. And we have bugger all. Okay, so that one is down. Let's see here. Down to you. Okay. So on the top half of the circuit board, let's see if there's any There's a negative 30 volts. That is probably for the display. Okay. Although the display seems to be working. But there seems to be a loss of 5 volts. Wait a second. This isn't right. Okay, the power supply has decided to totally die. Okay, so I have 12 volts coming in. And okay. Well then. I think we have found our issue. I think we have a power supply issue here. Let's see. Check that zoom there. So we do have 12 volts coming in. All right, now we need to check the power supply. Okay, so I'm going to remove the board and we're going to go from there.